Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Medium, a Thai-Korean co-production from 2021 that has some big names attached to it. It was co-produced by Na Hong-jin, the director of The Chaser, The Yellow Sea, and The Wailing, all very impressive films, and it was directed by a man who gave us Shutter, Alone, P-Mock, and certain short films within the Phobia anthology films. Again, all good movies here. So the involvement of these two filmmakers are one of the major reasons why The Medium is one of the most highly anticipated Asian horror films in recent years. The critics are giving it good reviews, and the comments on the Shudder streaming site, where it's being shown, have a lot of 5-star ratings for it. So this is the premise. A documentary team travels to the northeast part of Thailand to document the daily life of a local shaman, Nim, who is possessed by, or a medium of, the spirit of Bayan, a local deity whom the villagers worship. Now, Bayan is an ancestral god and has been possessing women in Nim's family for generations. The latest in the line of succession was Nim's older sister, Noi. However, Noi did not wish to become a medium and instead turned to Christianity as her religion. So the spirit of Bayan then moved into Nim and has been with her ever since. So that's kind of your setup. Now the documentary-style horror film here begins with some very nicely captured shots of natural environments and residential areas in Thailand, with some narration kind of describing the belief systems of the area. You know, for example, people in this village in particular believe that spirits exist in everything and are not simply produced by dead human beings. So that's, that type of thing. You get a little bit of a flavor, which is interesting. There's also some information given on shamans, and the documentary team has researched many of them in the past, it is mentioned, so they have experience in this area. Then we meet our main character, Nim, who seems to be a nice enough lady. She positively impacts the villagers by healing their spiritual ailments, etc., stuff like that. Meanwhile, her sister, Noi, has been enduring some unlucky tragedies with the men in her life. Now, there is an infusion of cultural content in this film. I especially like some of the locales, which include a large rock or stone formation where some of the celebrations and rituals are performed. The acting is pretty solid overall. The direction is solid, and the production values are solid. All very good here. The actress who plays Ming, the niece, is especially good because her performance required a lot of range. And when you see the film, you'll probably agree with me on that. She was the standout, in my opinion. Camera shots nicely framed, and the film just looks good overall. There's a bit of family conflict early on, which kind of kept me engaged for a little while. You have some of the shamanistic elements, and then you have the family dynamics as well. So it has a good setup. I think the opening 20 or so minutes are pretty strong. And this is a 2-hour and 11-minute film, folks. And I think the opening 20 minutes are pretty strong. So I have a lot of problems with this film. The first problem with The Medium is evident early on. How many times do we need to see the young niece, Ming, throw hissy fits and run to the restroom? I mean, we have an entire section of this film that's dedicated to following this girl around as she does ordinary daily things and then acts weird at certain points. Now, there is a gradual escalation of intensity, as you might expect, since this is a horror film, but this aspect is so insanely repetitive that it completely kills any momentum that the story was building at the very beginning. I get it, when we're going through this section of the film, and I'm just like, I get it, guys. There's something wrong with this girl. Can we move on at this point? We're spending way too much time on this. By the 50-minute mark of this film, I found it very difficult to stay interested in the story. Again, this is a 2-hour and 11-minute movie, and I am struggling at the 50-minute mark here. Now, The Medium does not justify its runtime at all, in my opinion. This movie should have been cut down by who knows how much time, but it should have been cut and edited down. Really, what happens during this middle hour of this film? I ask myself this. A girl acts strange, someone goes missing, and an old lady prays. That's the middle hour of this movie. And none of this is portrayed in an engaging or interesting way. It's so dryly presented. It's a real chore to sit through this film. I actually had to take a break. I paused the movie around like the 1 hour mark. I went out, drove in my car, got an espresso-based beverage to kind of recharge myself because I was so friggin' bored watching this movie. And for as much exposition as we get a lot of exposition in this, there's very little intricacy or complexity to the folklore. It's also basic. It feels like at the beginning it's setting it up to be explored, but it's not really explored that much. Here's a perfect example, okay? Near like the 75-minute mark, they decide to provide an explanation for some of this stuff. I'm not going to tell you what it is exactly. I'm not going to spoil it, but I need to just mention it. So very slight spoiler, okay? Some dude just shows up and figures it out in like 2 seconds. Dude shows up. He's like, oh yeah, this is your problem. And then he mentions some crazy thing that happened in the past that no one knew about in this village. Okay, so this village that's so superstitious and they've been believing in spirits for ages and all this stuff, no one apparently knew about this horrifying event that affected like a lot of freaking people. And it's directly related to some of its residents that are in this village and no one knew about it. But this dude who shows up knew about it, like, and he tells this lady, he's like, what, you didn't know? And the lady just looks at him like, and I'm saying to myself, okay, number one, this is lazy script writing, and number two, lady, you didn't know about this? Like, it's bad. That's like the worst part of the film in terms of its storyline. And it's not a dramatic revelation either. It's not like, in a film that's attempting to be interesting, you find clues to it. You know what I mean? They're going through, maybe the shaman or the documentary, these guys that are doing the documentary, maybe they dig in and are like, wait a second, there's this aspect here, let's dig into this, and you follow some clues, and you're like, oh crap, there's this thing that happened, and that's what's causing it, and it's like a dramatic event. That's not this. Dude just shows up, figures it out in 2 seconds, and then tells everybody. It's not clever or interesting at all. And to make matters worse, to make this even worse, okay, they don't even bother to explore this huge event that happened. The actual thing that explains, or at least partially explains, the horrific stuff that's going on. They don't even bother to research the actual event that generated this. They throw out a few lines of dialogue and then just skip it. This movie is so frustrating. They finally give themselves the opportunity to actually give us an interesting backstory and dig into stuff. And they don't even bother to develop it. This is what I'm talking about when I reference like a lack of intricacy and complexity. The script of this film is really kind of deceptively shallow. It seems like at first it's really gonna develop stuff, and by the end of the film you're just like, it didn't really give me much of anything interesting at all. And that makes the film feel more cliche and generic than it should have been, given the premise. Now at this point, all right, after this revelation, I'm becoming very impatient with the film, and I am desperately begging for a horror set piece, because there's really no horror set pieces at all during the first, 80 minutes of this freaking movie. There's a few little bits of creepiness that you get. So now I need the horror finale to save the film. Now, we get a few brief creep-outs, like I mentioned, during the middle. There's a scene on a road at night that's short, but, kind of works. The first big jump scare, I predicted it within a second of it showing up. Something happens, I'm like, we're going to have a jump scare now. And then the jump scare happened. So that's not good. Now, to this film's credit, there's really only a few jump scares in the whole film. So that's good. This isn't, an Insidious film where you have, 18 jump scares in the film. This is, so I'm glad they did not go overboard on the jumps. That's good. Now, there are some night vision aspects here before the finale that I think worked. It's part of that strange girl acting strange section of the film, and this is the part of that section that works the best, where they're actually showing her at night doing some weird stuff. I thought it was pretty good. It's stuff we've seen before, but the execution's there. Best scene in the film, horror-wise, is near the end. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, but it involves a baby crying. And that was a cool scene. That's the best scene in the film. We needed more of that in this 2 hour and 11-minute film. And the finale, it's fine. In general, it's fine. You get a little bit of violence, a little bit of blood. Nothing crazy, but it's okay. It's okay. So, these types of horror films, documentary style, usually scare me. The problem with the medium is that my feelings of frustration were so strong that they just outweighed any enjoyment I had of the scares. So this movie, you know what this reminded me of? It reminded me of like a really slickly produced Hollywood horror film. Something like The Conjuring Part 2 would be a good example. The Conjuring Part 2, strong production values, strong performances, strong direction, but boring as all hell to sit through and way too freaking long. That's what it reminded me of. This watching and actually having to review the medium, this felt like a homework assignment for me. It felt like a homework assignment. And my LED light is just went out on me. That's nice. So if you want an entertaining Thai horror film from recent years, check out Take Me Home from 2016. That's a pretty cool flick. I think that's on Amazon streaming. Or more recently, The Maid from 2020, which just came out recently. I'm gonna review that one next Saturday. Way more entertaining than The Medium, and it's not even close. And there are some cliches in The Maid as well, but in terms of entertainment value and holding my interest, that film did a way better job. So if you watch The Maid, go in completely blind, or you can wait for my spoiler-free review next Saturday. So in any case, I seem to be kind of in the minority on this. There are some reviews out there that aren't very positive, but most people seem to enjoy The Medium. So it's probably best just to decide for yourself. I mean, this is one of those instances, kind of rare instances, where I'm going to tell you to watch the movie even though I did not like it. It's on Shudder, the streaming service in the US and some other countries. So check it out, decide for yourself. You'll probably like it more than I did. So those are my thoughts on this one. Kind of a bitter disappointment, I must say. And as always, I will see you next time.